My name is Charles Kuffner. Can everybody hear me? Sorry, we only have 2 microphones and I'm letting the candidates use them. Is there anyone who cannot hear me? All right, so we have our 4 candidates for District H for this forum. I'm going to be asking them a series of questions. Everyone will get the same question. We're going to start out with each candidate being given an opportunity to introduce themselves. Do I have someone who is going to be keeping time on answers? Yes, because we would like our candidates to limit their time to 1 minute on their answers so that we can keep things moving. So if you're going to keep the time on that, let them know when, have an audible alarm or something, let them know when 1 minute is up. Speaking of such things, now is an excellent time to set your cell phones to silent or vibrate. I've done that on my own because it's very embarrassing to have the phone ring while you're up on a stage like this. So, some people have submitted questions. I may use some of them. We'll see how this goes. But we're here to listen to the candidates. So, with that said, we will get started. So, I would like each of you in turn to introduce yourself, give a 1 minute introduction to yourself. We'll start with Councilmember Cisneros.
I began my community activist role right here in Woodland Heights when I was laser focused on bringing improvements to Travis Elementary School. And I led the effort to bring
Is that microphone not on?
No. Maybe it's not.
Hello? There it is. Starting.
Candidates, one of the things that Ms. Solano told us is that if you hold the microphone flat, it gets better reception than the wireless mic pickups.
So, hold.
Like that one?
Like this.
I'm Carla Cisneros. I'm the incumbent. I began my career really as a community activist right here in Woodland Heights when I was laser focused on improving Travis Elementary School. I led the effort to bring the Spark Park here. I was the first coordinator of that. I led the effort to bring the Vanguard program to Travis. I went on to become the school board trustee where I served for 6 years, 1 year as president. When I left the school board, I went back to school to become a certified teacher and taught for 6 years at HISD. And it was that experience that really led me to where I am now because of the inequities and the disparity I saw across the district. I'm bringing the lessons I've learned here in Woodland Heights and I'm applying them to what I do in City Council about how we pull together, how we make things better for neighborhoods and for children. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gabby Salcedo. I am the representative of the 3. I want to thank you first for inviting me and giving me a chance to speak here tonight. The reason I decided to run is because I want to give a voice to the communities who don't necessarily come out like you all do to hear candidates. So I want to go out there and knock on doors and I want to spread the message that your vote does matter and people are listening. At the end of the day, it will be the voters who decide which candidate resonates the best with them. But I want to give them options, so you'll hear a few of my thoughts here tonight. I'm very thankful that I'm running with 3 other incredible women that are still, out there fighting, and regardless of race, and there'll still be advocates out there for the community.
We do have 2 microphones, so I don't want to have to waste too much time. It's Isabel.
Here we go. Howdy. So my name is Isabel Longoria. I'm a native Houstonian and progressive Democrat running here in District H. I live right behind the McDonald's on 45 in North Main, so I like to tell folks if you go through the drive-thru to Hogg, and I'll come out. I've been proud to work for both Jessica Farrar and Sylvia Garcia and have her endorsement. And it's that legacy of public service that I want to continue here in District H. I love Houston. I love going around and doing 311 reports with my friends. I love figuring out if a 4, 6, or 8 foot sidewalk is the best thing to have in a neighborhood. And I really want to use my experience on the Planning Commission to help inform what we're going to do about flooding and affordable housing, and then also advocate for equality and other progressive issues for Houston as a whole. So again, my name is Isabel Longoria. I like to say, just like my cousin Ava Longoria, just as pretty, but twice as hard working.
Good evening, my name is Cynthia Reyes-Revilla, and I'm running for City Council District H. I was born and raised in the Riverside community. I've been there for 46 years. I'm raising my family of 2 girls, a 6 and 8-year-old. I am a community leader. I've been involved in the community, dedicating thousands of hours working around issues around safety, environmental health, access to parks, just a variety of different issues. I come from a working family. My father was in the steel working business, and currently I am a real estate broker working for my own brokerage. So I'm a small business owner. I've been doing that for 15 years. I was graduated from the University of Houston downtown with a marketing degree, and so I bring a lot of knowledge to the community because of my work experience, school knowledge, and then my years of dedication to the community.
All right. So there are obviously many issues that a city as big and complex as Houston faces. Just to warm us up, please tell me what your top 1 or 2 issues are that you would like to work on as a city councilman. We'll start with Cynthia.
So my top 2 issues are definitely going to be safety, which includes crime and environmental health. And then the second one is definitely going to be infrastructure.
You have up to a minute.
Okay, sorry. So my work is very extensive around safety. So it's not just crime, but also environmental health. When it comes to crime, I work to really bridge the gap between the community and the Houston Police Department, and also other policing agencies such as HPD, sheriffs, Metro, Precinct 1, Precinct 6. And so the community has really felt there was a gap in lack of communication. And what I've done is I've worked with them to really bridge that gap by really reinforcing what the PIP programs mean and encouraging residents, if they feel that they're lacking being part of the conversation, to be part of the board. And so as of right now, we have many residents that are being reflected as being part of the PIP board. I've also worked with HPD.
Time.
Thank you.
So Isabel Longoria again. My top issue is going to be housing and development issues. Like I said, on my time on the Planning Commission, one thing that really bugged me is on the Planning Commission, we get all these projects, you're supposed to be able to decide what's best for the context of the community. And one thing, or 2 things we're not allowed to ask for are affordability and flooding. So if we see a project in a floodplain and the developer says it's going to be affordable, just trust me, we can't do anything about that. Those are the kind of loopholes that, since we haven't revised the development codes in Houston in a long time, and we're starting to see it now, right? We're having more flooding and infrastructure issues. And like I said, I'm a nerd. That's the kind of stuff I love delving into, is getting deep in the codes and figuring out where those little loopholes line by line and closing them. And just in general, working on civic engagement. In a municipal election, only 10% of the electorate is going to vote. 10% of you and your neighbors are going to decide who your next elected official is. I don't want to be the kind of person that says, I'm going to block walk and phone bank right for my election, and then you won't see me for 4 years. I want to be someone who's block walking every day, 311 every day, phone calling you, and being active in the community, because that's the representation you deserve.
Gabby, go.
So my top 2 issues would also be flooding and infrastructure. I do believe that those are the 2 main things that the city focuses on, and something that they can really do something about. So with flooding, I also believe that you can do something that I know that there have been a lot of streets that have been rebuilt and things that have been done. But regardless, there are numerous streets, just a little bit of rain, we had a little bit of rain today, and they just begin to flood. And the solution that I would propose is to think a little bit more outside the box, thinking something more along the lines of perhaps permeable concrete. So to do that, to make it more profitable for construction people to come in and say like, oh, this is something that we can do, this is something that we can implement. I would suggest maybe doing something like changing the Unified Development Code so that the drainage requirements are less. The study has been done and seen that this is something that can definitely help the city. The other thing would be infrastructure. The textile project is coming in, and so I would definitely think the city needs input on that. So.
Well, as I said before, the focusing on opportunities for children is, I think, is the most important thing. It's the most important investment we can make, the highest return on investment in our city. And for me, that translates into making improvements in their neighborhoods. That includes a lot of things. It's more than just but the infrastructure is part of it. A lot of the neighborhoods I represent are old, some of the oldest in the city, where it is hard to retrofit and modernize. We have a lot of ditch neighborhoods. We still have community sewer lines. We have mobility and transportation is a big part of what I'm focusing on. Putting in bicycle lanes and B-cycle, supporting the parks and libraries, after school, summer school, enrichment programs, illegal dumping. Okay, there's more.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about flooding, because I think everyone is interested in that. We are now about 2 years out from Hurricane Harvey. Please give me your assessment of where the city stands in terms of recovery from Harvey and what we need to be doing now going forward to continue that and to prepare ourselves for the next time. So we'll start with Isabel.
So, I was honored during Harvey to serve at George R. Brown in the command center. And one of the things that I saw there was just the amazing need. There were 11,000 people at George R. Brown at its peak. And when I was there, the mayor turned to me at a different meeting, and because I was working for AARP, he said, I want to put you in charge of recovery for seniors. And here's some of the things I learned. Yes, we all know the money is coming slow from the federal government. By the time you get the money and you build the houses, we're 2 years out, we're barely getting the first houses on the ground. That is something that takes time. We can't put houses on the ground the next day. But what we can do is the projects that I've led at AARP and that I'd love to keep leading in City Council is helping people with their lien issues. Because if you don't have flood insurance, if you have a lien on your home, if you have a title issue on your home, then the city and any other government entity can't help you. It's not just about giving ourselves a pat on the back and saying we're building houses, but looking at all of those wraparound issues and all of those holistic issues of what it takes to help families recover in the long term.
So during Harvey, I was actually affected. I was actually stranded out in Dallas during Harvey. When I came back to Houston, the next day, I was out there mucking and gutting homes, helping residents begin the recovery process. And as we know, as Isabel stated, that we know that there's funding lacking, being tied up at the city. That's $1.6 billion that has not reached the people. And one of the problems that we have here in the city is accessibility to resources. And that's one of them that we desperately need. 2 years later, we still have people that are living in homes without sheetrock, that are still feeling the wrath of the storm, and that's just not fair. So what we need to do is really look at the housing code, try to revise it so that the next storm that comes in, we're better prepared. And so,
Okay, Carl.
Well, this is an ongoing thing. In the initial days, I was orchestrating rescues. People were calling me and arranging dump trucks to pick up people that were stranded. And following that, we were then trying to help people get back on their feet, connecting them to services, knocking on doors and seeing who needed help, and organizing volunteers to do that. And there was so much confusion initially. As things settled down and there were more programs, we collected a lot of information, and it just didn't seem to go anywhere because the federal government was so slow, and the state government, in coming up with resources. We still have people, it's almost a daily basis, I am still working on Harvey. I'm helping people, especially the most vulnerable ones, the seniors that are still waiting to get back into homes. It will continue to be an issue. I have a school that's still closed, a library that's still closed. It's a big issue across the city, and we need federal help. We need commitment from the state legislators too.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important that people have access to resources, especially people that have been currently affected. They need knowledge, they need resources. But I also think something that the city could do is to prevent this from happening again. There has been, reports coming out that this is something that could possibly happen again in the future. And we need to update our infrastructure. We need to make sure that if this happens again, we have an updated evacuation plan. And also we have somewhere. We build houses so that those houses are no longer affected by floods and things like that. So one thing is using the current resources that are available to us. Something that Fort Wayne County does is the Atlas 14 project. kind of survey saying this is the floodplain. So Houston currently uses the 500-year floodplain map, so no houses. But I think that there are better ways to kind of update that. And the Atlas 14 project is something that Fort Bend County has done. So I think just looking towards technology, looking towards more resources.
All right. This spring, the legislature was in session. I think it's fair to say that the city of Houston did not do very well in terms of bills that were passed in the legislature. Cities in general, and Houston in particular, have been under assault from members of the legislature who want to take control away from the city on a variety of issues. In addition, the city's finances were attacked by the bill that took away cable franchise fees. The city's water rights were attacked when it was required to sell water rights from Lake Houston. The city has a lobbying team in Austin. It doesn't, they do obviously advocate for its needs when the legislature in session. And obviously, the way the legislature is now, things are a little hostile. All that said, what can be done? What will you do to improve the city's relations with the state government and advocate for the city's needs with the legislature going forward? Gabby.
So what I would say is that it's very important to get the people out there voting for people that will represent the interests of the cities better and give power back to the cities. So one thing is that we'll definitely improve relations with the legislator, but at the end of the day, it's people's voice that matters. And I think that going out there telling people that you need to vote, you need to go out there, not just in the big presidential election, but also in the city elections and the Texas legislators. So I think that's something that's very important. Right now I can say that, we can have lobbyists, we can have all these kinds of things, but at the end of the day, it will be the people who matter, and we'll be them who decide that we want the power to be back in the city. So things like text dots, something like that, that's not something that the city, they're trying their hardest to kind of accommodate and make sure that, people are like, they're trying to work together, the city and the state, but it's very difficult to do so if it's in a hostile environment. So my solution would be getting people out there to vote.
Okay, Carl.
I think you had a very good answer. I mean, it's really about accountability, and holding the representatives accountable. And we have people that are in Austin right now who are doing a good job, and we have people in Austin right now who are not looking out for Houston at all. Cities in Texas are under attack, and it's important to call them out. It's important for everyone to know. I know we have some candidates, for state office in the, in the audience right now. I hope you're paying attention, but a lot of the Houston delegation, they are fighting an uphill battle. It's leadership at the top, and I think it's really important to pay attention to that. So all the good intentions, on our end, to build relationships, if it's politically driven, if it's partisan, and they just are, decided, no, we're not gonna be kind to Houston, we're gonna punish you, because that's certainly how it looks and how it feels.
Cynthia.
So I really think that the solution should not be from top to bottom or from bottom up. And what I mean by that is that the state representatives or those in the legislation really should depend on the residents and the community to filter concerns or information to our current leadership. And then that leadership has a responsibility to communicate to our current leadership in the House. And so I think really sitting down and having a heavy conversation about what the concerns and the needs are out in cities and community, and then really sitting down and understanding how do we come to an agreement, how do we come to a solution to address those issues.
So I worked in the state legislature for over 6 years. I was proud to serve in 3 sessions. That began in 2011 with the red wave coming in through the Texas legislature, and I was working for Jessica Farrar, who's the head of the Democratic caucus. I'll tell you what, being in the minority teaches you very quickly how to work with people and what works and what doesn't. There's still a Republican majority in the Texas House. What we can do to change that is, again, as elected officials on the ground level, it's not just saying, well, if it's not a city council race, I'm out, right? It's saying, I'm going to use my volunteers, I'm going going to use my resources to make sure people are coming out and voting every single election to start turning the tide. Those are some of the more formal things we can do. Some of the informal things that I was proud to lead when I worked for Senator Sylvia Garcia is hosting a breakfast for the staff members of every office of every elected official. That sounds small, but there's not a lot of elected officials and staff who get to talk to each other and actually solve problems. I would love to host those informal breakfasts so we can build those relationships together and say, okay, when you're at the state legislature, what do you need? Not just, well, you know, maybe I'll call and maybe they'll give me the time of day.
All right. I'm going to add, there are obviously also places where the city intersects with the federal government. I don't expect city people to solve federal issues, but where we can, there are things that can be done. So I'm going to ask you about gun violence. I mean, obviously, this is an issue that needs to be addressed in Washington and in Austin. But what can the city do? What would you advocate for the city to do to fight and reduce gun violence within the confines of what the city is allowed to do?
This is such a terrible problem that we have, and it's, you know, we've always had guns around, you know, but there's been a change. Our country has changed, and it's gotten more dangerous. It's gotten meaner, you know. And I think, again, going back to children, I think that you know, our families aren't the same as they used to be. We have, you know, these angry young people who are shooting places up. You know, that didn't used to be that way, and I think that part of the problem is that we're not taking a good enough care of our kids. I think that's one small piece of it. You know, you're right, a lot of this has to happen, you know, legislatively at higher levels, but it's not enough just to, you know, I don't want to arm teachers, you know, and living in you know, fortresses and fortifying schools. That's not the right way. I think, you know, we need to do some deeper work, you know, on changing how we raise children and how we interact with each other in respectful ways.
Isabel.
Yes, there's always going to be gun violence in the world, but there's some very real things we can do at the city level to take care of it. We can close the loophole that allows people to buy guns at the gun shows that we have at George R. Brown Convention Center. There are things we can do to increase funding through our own health department for mental health resources, for the flagging resources at schools. And there's also things we can do as elected officials again. You know, it sounds silly, but if an elected official puts something on their Facebook or their social media, you take a stand publicly and you start changing the discourse. We can no longer say, well, that's a political hot-button issue, well, I'm going to moderate, well, I'm just going to sit back. We have to take stances on these issues personally and professionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very terrible issue that unfortunately has plagued our country these past few years. And this is something that the federal government has to take action on. But something that the city can do, and something that we can do as people, is just kind of change the culture, just educate people. And mental health is something that's very serious. So I definitely agree with you on that. That's something that we need to talk about, you know, with our children, with our peers. We need to have open conversations and make sure that they understand that they have an outlet. They have an outlet that isn't violence. And to further that point, we also need to stop this kind of division that is in this country. I do think that's something that we can start doing here at a local level. Stop this division, this partisan division. You know, we all need to sit down together because this is an issue that affects all of us. And we need to sit down and we need to talk about it. We need to have a conversation. You know, why is the other side so adamant? Why are they so adamant on saying that no gun reform, no this? We need to have a conversation so that both sides understand each other.
Cynthia.
So obviously, we all know that gun violence is very, it's prominent today, and it just really comes down to really making stricter gun laws. I don't know what laws the city can implement, but I do know that it has become an issue. I drop my daughters off every day at school in fear that you know, something may happen, and it's a shame that our children have to go through intruder. I don't even know what you call them, intruder drills. There you go. It's scary. It's really scary. But the environment, you know, the climate that we live in now, it's very hostile, it's very divided, and we really need to do a better job to protect our kids.
Okay. As we sit here and talk today, TxDOT is going through plans to widen and alter and move I-45. We still don't have what the final plan is. There's still public discourse going on, but we know that what's in the works is a pretty big change. What would you advocate with TxDOT for I-45? What do you want to see happen? What do you not want to see happen with I-45? Cindy.
So I am totally against the I-45 project. I realize that TxDOT is a big monster that we may not be able to be successful in knocking down. But if for some reason we cannot be successful in stopping the project, then I definitely am advocating for major revisions to the project. Right now we have issues that involve a multitude of issues. So flooding is one, accessibility, connectivity to communities, displacement. We're losing schools, we're losing churches, we're losing economic development that we've worked in many communities to bring to this community. And so if we can't totally stop the project, then there would have to be severe changes that I would advocate for that I just listed.
Gabby.
So I-45, I live right off of 45. I live right off of 45. I know that there are people that are going to be affected by this. Not all of them are homeowners. Some of them are just renters. And what I would say is I would definitely want to focus on making sure these people have communities, good communities that they can go and move into. As far as TxDOT, what's currently happening right now, I would say that we should advocate as much. We definitely need to push. We definitely need to say, make sure this is what we want, this is what we need as a community. I think that just making sure that our voice is heard, making sure that they take into account all of the changes that we think is necessary. What I would like to advocate for is for people not to lose their homes, but I know that may in the end be inevitable. So I want Houston to build up communities to make sure that there are other places where these people will have a choice to go and not just keep being pushed further and further to the outskirts of the city.
Isabel.
So this is a project that I've been tracking, for over 8 years in my time with Senator Sylvia Garcia's office, and I think there's a couple very practical things. That piece of phase 2 between downtown and 610 of I-45 is considered one of the most dangerous places right in Texas. We know it. When I get on 45 right there at North Main, you're immediately thrown into traffic. That's what puts us between a rock and a hard place. We do have to make some safety improvements with those intersections. I do want to preserve the intersection at North Main, both the on-ramp and off-ramp in both directions. I think we shouldn't totally, cut out every on and off-ramp too that leads into Lindale Park. And there's some very real consequences because every square inch of the I-45 project touches District H. And so we have to be the strongest advocate for the pollution impacts that are going to be. Because when you talk about moving more cars through faster, that's more pollution that's coming in. And we all, even here, are going to be in that zone where that benzene all falls here. I want to advocate for vegetative barriers, and I don't want to take the breadcrumbs that TxDOT gives, right, of we'll lessen by one lane. I really want to make sure we're pushing for smart changes that are going to make it easier and safer for us.
When they built the highways in the 50s and 60s, they were generally welcomed as, modern, great ideas. It was going to create access, to opportunity, for everybody. That's not what happened. And we have now the highways have created flooding problems along District H and Independence Heights and in the Artist Warehouse District. It's created areas of poverty and the quality of the air, and there's very great concern that as is coming in with the same kind of mentality that from 50 years ago, that those problems are going to get worse. They're not really addressing them in our part of town. It's going to get worse. I would like to see a regional plan that looks at all of the highways and how we can think about how traffic moves systematically through our city. Highways, I don't believe. I think we need to use what we have better. I would like to see governmental agencies working more closely together about that. We've got 3 highways that are parallel within 2 miles. I'm sorry.
There's also going to be a referendum on the ballot this November for Metro for big expansion and continuation of its services, buses, BRT, light rail, HOV, lots of things. Give me your overview of the Metro referendum and what priorities you want, how you want to see them prioritize it, assuming it passes. Isabel.
So MetroNext is great. We know we need regional planning. We know we need to invest in mass transit and other options. Where I think MetroNext is currently lacking is two spots. One, the issue of first and last mile connections. It's all good and great if you build rail and buses, but if you're not fixing the sidewalks, right, between that bus stop and your house, people won't walk in. If you're not making sure that the bus shelters actually have benches and shading, people aren't going to go out in the summer. We have to think big, but in a way, thinking big is about thinking about the smallest unit possible, and that's the space between your house and the next closest stop. And I think MetroNext is about to get thrown for a curveball with I-45. If we talk about I-45 and the realignment, at some point we will shut down the red line and the green and purple lines. So all of these investments we're making in mass transit could come to a stop because of I-45 projects.
Gabby.
So the MetroNext project. So Metro is something that I've taken my entire life. You said that if there's a last mile, you're not gonna walk it, but sometimes you don't have to walk it. So from high school, I actually went to radio, from middle school, I went to Hamilton, and so I took the Metro, and if you need it, you didn't have to use it. So I'm definitely for MetroNext, but I have to say that there's certain proposals. We need to look over the budget. There's the trains. It's like a $2.6 billion that they're proposing. When other cities have done kind of a similar thing for much less money. So I just kind of want to see maybe a little bit more detail on that. I want more accountability. And I know that this is kind of just a budget proposal that's being passed, but I want to make sure that once it gets passed, things are getting done, and that the people are, that things are getting done. Is basically what I want to say.
Carla.
I applaud the MetroNext plan. I think that they've done a really good job of reaching out to the communities. There's been a lot of community input that seems reflected back, unlike what TxDOT has done. But I think that, what I'm understanding about it is that they are paying attention to that first and last mile. That there's a lot of part of this will be sidewalks and bus shelters and and accessibility. I think those are all really good things. I also like the focus on buses. The BRTs. That's so much more efficient and effective and flexible than more rail. So I know that's part of it too, but I think that giving access to our neighborhoods, to deeper into the neighborhoods with buses is really an important part of it. And I think Metro's done a good job. It's been very innovative.
So I think the Metro plan is a great plan. It's definitely going to be supportive of incorporating different transit options. The first and last mile is very important because of accessibility to the rails, making sure that people are able to walk to the platforms, get on the rail, and then be able to get to the destination after they get off. I definitely want to make sure that Metro is investing in communities that use and depend the bus lines and the rail lines, especially like District H. I always tend to call District H a pedestrian community because a lot of people in there do depend on the light rail. So I would like to make sure that Metro has done a full assessment of taking comments from residents that live in the community that use Metro Rail to make sure that they are incorporated in the new plan.
Okay. All of you mentioned last mile and sidewalks. Let's talk a little bit more about pedestrians. I mean, in this city, unfortunately, we have a lot of vehicle-pedestrian accidents that cause a lot of fatalities, and vehicle-bicycle accidents that cause a lot of fatalities. The city is moving to adopt something called Vision Zero, which is a goal of eliminating vehicle-pedestrian, vehicle-bicycle fatalities in the city. So what steps would you take to improve pedestrian bicycle safety, including things like road humps, speed limits, you name it, go wild. Gabby.
So I would definitely advocate for more bike lanes in District H. There's a lot. I know Heights has some wonderful bike lanes, but there's a lot of places north of 610 that are definitely lacking in it. A few of the houses that I've been to, a few of the people that I've talked to also mentioned that they want more speed bumps. So right when I was putting my sign there, the car just zoomed right past them. So I also think that there needs to be a way for the people to kind of communicate this, kind of say like these are things that we need need. So I don't want there to be more kind of access, to a council member, access to people who can actually make these changes. So I definitely advocate for bike lanes, and when you mentioned next, I would say, connecting them in some way. Stonewood Park is a beautiful thing where it connects all the way to the WHCA. So I think that, the city has done some things right, and I wish that we would implement those things further.
Isabel.
So I served on the Walkable Places Subcommittee of the Planning Commission, which is how I got involved with the Planning Commission. And I'm really excited that we passed a pilot project that talks about big developments right along pedestrian corridors and starts with developers and says, okay, if you're going to build and you want, to build closer to the building line and get a little more square footage, you got to give us at least 6-foot sidewalks. Because if you have 4-foot sidewalks, someone like me, that's the whole 4 feet, right? So we have to actually get development codes that make the sidewalks big enough for people to walk down. And also with Vision Zero, I am all for it. We have to start designing roads that protect people, not just move cars faster. So when we look at projects like I-45, we have to consider Vision Zero in those big projects as well. If we're proud that we're moving people faster through the freeway and getting them on the off-ramps faster, what does that mean? We are going against the Vision Zero vision. And so I want to realign all of the plans for the city of Houston to fit with Vision Zero, and I'm all for public education and redesigning the roads to meet that paradigm as well.
So just to reiterate what the other lady said, I am all for Vision Zero. I do think that we should have dedicated bike lanes, more protective crossing barriers, and also protective barriers on the lanes. But one thing that I obviously is very important incorporating into Vision Zero is making sure that we include the high fatalities areas into that plan. So basically making sure that in certain areas of District H, if there's a high fatality areas or crash areas, that those sites are included in the plans, that those become priority in the project. Trying to think of what else. That's all.
Okay, Carla.
A lot of people talk about supporting bike lanes. I will tell you, I'm the only council member that has put in significant money. 1/3 of my budget last year went to building high comfort bike lanes. So the Harding Legion bike lanes, the two parallel roads, those are now high comfort bike lanes. I've also paid for the one that crosses over on Houston Avenue over I-10. No other council member has done that. I have spent in my time maybe almost $800,000 on sidewalks. Sidewalks are expensive, and I tell you, it is a challenge in District H where we don't have, when our city was developed as a car city, we are so car-centric, and there are so many challenges to go back and now find enough right-of-way to have sidewalks. But it's important, we need to transition our thinking and how we operate, so because Vision Zero is for everybody. It's for the car drivers to be safer too. But there's so many other kinds of mobility. People that walk. I'm a walker. People that bike. People that ride. People that roll.
All right. So to transition to something more specific relating to this, there's a proposal to change 11th Street, which is one of the main thoroughfares through this neighborhood, from 2 lanes of traffic each way to 1 lane of traffic each way with bike lanes as well. What's your position on that?
So most of that project is in District C. And when it crosses P-Core coming into this neighborhood, I heard from a lot of people that lived on P-Core, they were not happy about that. They said, at this point, this is residential, and we rely on these, the ability to be able to park in front of our homes. So that was what I heard, that's what I pushed back on with the bike plan, and I said, let's find another way. So I think the part about crossing over and getting to Hogg is a good idea. That is a good idea. But I said, I can't support it going down P-Core. There's too many people that it's going to impact them negatively. And so they have turned it, and it looks like it's going to be kind of an informal line down Julian. So it won't be a dedicated lane, but it's a quieter street, and I think it's a better solution.
Cynthia.
Okay. So as far as that project, in my opinion, it has to be something that the community wants. It has to be not negatively impactful to the community. It is beneficial to the schools that are surrounding. But it's very important to have community input. I know that projects on 45 and Elysian that are bike as a community is very upset about these projects and how so much money was allocated to that project and the community can't even use it. And so just making sure that the community has input when it comes to this project so that funding isn't basically wasted.
Yes. 11th is a corridor that's quickly changing with all of the development coming in. I think we do have to ask ourselves about the parking issues, right? And where residents feel that they can have the infrastructure to use that. I think it is right to move those bike lanes over to another street where it is better for pedestrians, because where we should be combining really bikes and cars is where we have no other option. And I think through Woodland Heights, we can make other really corridors that we can use that and leverage some of that bike lane money to improve some of the streets, right? That still have ditches and that aren't safe to walk on, much less bike on, and again with the sidewalks. So yes, I think we need some bike improvements coming through. I'm not sure that needs to happen on 11th, and already with all of the speed bumps, there's so much money that's already been invested there. We have to ask ourselves, where are we double dipping in the neighborhood?
Yeah.
I would say I agree with everyone here. The most important thing is community input. And they have said if this is something they want, then we have to respect that, and we can definitely use it for other projects. So everyone have a choice.
Okay, another question specific to this neighborhood. We're all familiar with White Oak Music Hall. There have been some complaints about it not being such a great neighborhood, not such a great neighbor. Sweet noise, parking, other issues with it. I confess I live far enough away from it that I'm kind of blissfully ignorant, but I have a question about it, and I've heard a lot of complaints about it. So tell me, what do you think you could do to make White Oak Music Hall a better neighbor and fit better into the neighborhood that it's in?
So White Oak has been a very sensitive issue since it's come to the community. I mean, it has its benefits of bringing economic development and job opportunity for residents who live around it, White Oak Music Hall, and it's a beautiful facility that brings entertainment. But on the flip side of that, there are residents that are affected by the noise and the crime and just the uncivilities of people coming in and just doing what they want on the streets and parking in addition to that. I know that there have been many conversations with the owners of White Oak Music Hall and with city and with residents in that community, and there seems to be still struggle with that. And so I really think that there has to be deeper conversation, maybe with a smaller, more focused group to really address the issues and the concerns, so that White Oak can be a better business partner in the community.
When I became a council member, I inherited this, and it was a huge challenge for me, as things began to just fall apart. The neighborhood in White Oak Music Hall originally had a memorandum of understanding. People, started off on the same page, but it fell apart soon after I came on board, and initially I was working really hard to bring people together, the city, the neighborhood, the owners, and it didn't go well, and it ended up in the court system, and they came up with eventually a resolution, to that, and but just most recently, just in the last few weeks, it's gone. It's still in the courts. There's a new finding that the judge has ruled that a new definition for sound, and so that's being contested, and so stay tuned, but it's in the court system.
Yeah.
I would say that we definitely need to have that sit down together and have more talks about this. It is a small business, and we're not sure exactly what the city could possibly do for that, but I do think that we can, ease the conversation. That will be my only solution to it.
Isabel?
I think first and foremost, being the kind of council member who's not going to back down just because the negotiations get tough, right? These are the moments that you need leadership most to step up and keep people at the table. And one of the things in the innovative solutions I want to work on too is, what if we had quiet nights? And we said, when we know there's testing days at our schools, when we know there's other sensitive days that the neighborhood agrees upon, we won't have any of those concerts. And I'll tell you, I live close enough that in the winter, in the dead of night, it's all quiet, I can hear that thumping hard. are. So I'm affected by this as well. But, let's be honest, White Oak is here. We should also look at the parking issues. How can we incentivize them to build a parking garage? It might be unsightly, but what would you prefer? A parking garage that maybe comes one, level over the tree line and actually get some of that traffic off the streets? Or to say, well, I preserved my tree line and now we've got all these folks coming down. Our neighborhood was not built for all of that traffic on North Street and all of those roads. And so now we have to make the tough trade-off, right, of building other infrastructure to really account for what's going on in White Oak.
Okay. A lot of people in this district live in historic districts. People who live in historic districts have to get permits for repairs and construction, and that can be a challenge because the Historic Commission only meets once a month. What can we do, to both, ensure that the spirit of the historic district is being met, but also help out the people who have to deal with this kind of, delay when they want to just, make some repairs to their house. We start with Isabel. Sure.
So currently, the planning department of Houston is at 50% staff capacity. That's through natural attrition, right? That's through not being able to be competitive with wages. That's for a variety of reasons. And so one of the things we have to really confront, and we're kind of tiptoed around this all today, is the budget crisis at the city of Houston. The revenue cap. Where are we going to bring in sources of revenue so that we can actually invest in the services like this that people as residents expect? If you have 50% staff capacity, right, at the planning department, and you've got, 75% or less at the permitting department, it means this: projects slow down. It costs people time because they have to delay their permits or the opening of their business 1 month, 2 months, or more. And for a business, that can be a death knell. So I think we really need to invest in looking at how we can repeal the revenue cap, how we can look for other sources of income to invest in the city, to invest in the department, so we can actually keep things moving in the city.
Cynthia.
So obviously, when you're searching for a historic designation, there comes a lot of work, and it becomes very tedious when you're trying to get permitting approved. But going back to what Isabel said about the lack of staff to help push the permitting through, and I know that your question involved about the commission meeting one time a month, and so there has to be a better process where if someone has filed something, instead of having to wait 1 month out to get an approval, that there should be maybe like a second process or second layer that their plans can be reviewed maybe prior for approval.
I think it's really important that we have historic areas and that it's something that neighborhoods choose to do, and it's important that we protect them. And that we have a big change was the development of the historic guidelines that are specific to neighborhoods. Those are good changes. I think earlier there was more problems with some inconsistency in how the historic commission worked and reviewed things, but I think it's that part that's better now. The time delays is true. I wanted just to say regarding revenue caps, one of the hostile things the state did to the city of Texas, or the city of Houston, was when they put in, there's now a state revenue cap, and it's lower actually than the one that we self-imposed on ourselves, but they are not allowing the city of Houston to adjust to the lower cap. It's another punishment by the state that we are stuck in. So it's really a moot point at this point about the revenue cap.
Yeah.
I would say it's very important to preserve our history, preserve our historic neighborhoods, but I don't think it should come at the expense of people just living their normal lives. I think something the city can do is just streamline the process, become more efficient. I definitely think government needs to be more efficient. So that's just a suggestion that I would make. I don't know exactly the ins and outs of the process, but I do know that there's probably a way to make it much more efficient.
Okay. There were some issues earlier this year with recycling pickup, and there's been some problems reported where not all the recycling is actually going to be recycled. Some of it is going to the trash dump. Give me your diagnosis of what's going on with the solid waste department and what can be done to ameliorate these, to fix these problems and get this department working better going forward. Gabby.
I would say that definitely, recycling is something very important, and it might be, I'm sure, also yours. I don't think this is something the government should kind of just skip on. I think the city just needs to let us know, exactly what's going on. Maybe open lines of communication, just tell us a little bit more, what exactly are the issues that are preventing our recycling from being picked up, and how can we help as a community? Is there something that we can do, maybe collectively as a community, just power together or something? Just look for solutions. Ask the community. If there are issues, I'm sure we understand, and there are ways that we can definitely work together to fix them.
So the problem you're referring to was really an anomaly. That should not have happened. That's been addressed, and the consequences of giving people that did that. That should not have happened. That recycling should not have gone to landfills. That was wrong. So the city is committed to recycling. We have a brand new recycling center that's not accepting glass. It's accepting plastic film. There's a big commitment to that. So in terms of where solid waste is, like other departments, we're lagging behind in our equipment. There are new garbage trucks, recycling trucks that are coming in the next few months, and so I hope you're seeing improvement in your service. We're not getting quite as many calls as we were, so but the city is definitely committed to recycling, and I hope that as we can get back online. Harvey took a huge. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to look at you. Okay, sorry.
Cynthia.
So the better recycling program, in my opinion, and from my experience in my community, has been a joke. There's been weeks that we have gone without recycling pickup. You call, there's no response, and from my understanding, I don't even know if there's even a real program. Yes, the trucks are picking up, but they're dumping in landfills. I don't understand what's happening with that. But it really needs to be a program that if Houston wants to be a green city, well, let's be a green city. Let's find a solution to the problems. And privatization of these recycling services is not an option because we're taking away jobs from the working class.
We all love recycling, and there's a couple issues with recycling, right? We know that the city is bringing on more trucks to do it effectively. We know sometimes that recycling trucks are used to pick up garbage because there's not enough working garbage trucks, so they have to work double time. And I think also there's an issue with education. If someone dumps trash in the recycling bin, right, because they think their trash can is overflowing or maybe they don't know all the rules, then we run into issues where we have more trash in our recycling that then gets dumped. And so what I want to be cautious about too is both an elected official and just as a human being is not leaning into this false narrative because it's politically convenient, right? The major issue with recycling in Houston is yes, getting the trucks and the infrastructure, but also education efforts in our schools and in our neighborhoods. I want to lead community block walks year round where we go around with all of our community partners, anyone who wants to be involved, and say, hey, here's some information about recycling, here's where we can host recycling events for your batteries or paint or other things, right, that you can fund as a city council office, so that we don't just throw all of that responsibility on one green bin and hoping that people know how to use that green bin appropriately.
Okay. Last November, there was a vote for what was called a pay parity referendum with the Houston firefighters. As you know, it was subsequently thrown out by a judge. It was something that would have cost the city a large amount of money, but it passed with like 57, 58% of the vote. How did you vote on Proposition B last November? Carla?
I voted against it because of the costs that it was going to hit the city with. All along, I have maintained before and after that the solution is not a vote. The solution is people coming together and working it out. And I still think that's the solution. But mandating, an unfunded, action like that was reckless and irresponsible.
Jackie?
I would say that.
So how did you vote on Proposition B?
Okay, so I voted no because I also agree that it's something that the council people, sorry, get a little sick today. So I believe it's something that should have been in the talks. I don't think that it's something, the city, sorry. I don't believe it's this. Do you want to go next? Yeah, can we trade time?
Go ahead, Isabel.
So I voted with a lot of heartburn against property. I too heard 100 million in 1 year. That's a lot. That's a lot. And I want to be careful too, because this was a difficult vote for many folks. Had I heard 55 million over 5 years, maybe, and if I knew there was a plan to really make that happen, I might have changed my vote. But 100 million in 1 year is a lot. I also would not have voted. There were several votes after that, right? So property is a big one, but there was at one point a vote to go ahead and lay off municipal workers in the interim while negotiations were trying to happen between the firefighters and the city. That's not something I would have supported. We can wait 2 weeks, right? We can make sure that we're not giving people insecurity over their job or where their next paycheck is going to come from to try and work it out for 2 weeks. And I also think the precedent of suing based on collective bargaining ability in the future also sets a precedent that's pretty dangerous for our unions. And as a progressive Democrat, those are the values that I stand by, is protecting our working families.
Gabby, you want to try?
Yes. So I want to know, I don't think this is something, that needs to have a vote on. I don't think that we need to, dictate exactly, what the city needs to be doing in that way. But I do think that there should have been maybe better negotiations. Firefighters, they're upset about their pensions, they wanted to make it up even with this pay raise. I think this is something that should have been, handled better, in council with the mayor. I know they had this, this big debate. It didn't sit well with me. I think this is something that needs to happen, between the union and the city.
Cynthia.
So this pay parity issue, this fight between the firefighters and the city, this has been going on for decades. This didn't just happen last 2018. But to answer your question, I did vote in support of property for a variety of reasons. For one, honestly, I saw the safety of the community more valuable than more valuable in my opinion. And I do feel that it all comes down to a budget issue with the city. When we talk about the revenue cap, that's preventing us from being able to support a lot of city services that we have. And so the firefighter or the pay parity just basically compounded that concern. I want to add some more. Yeah, my husband is a Houston firefighter, and so I wasn't supportive of it. But again, it's not about just the money part of it. It was about providing safety resources to our community.
Okay. In 2015, the city council passed an equal rights ordinance that was unfortunately subsequently repealed by the voters in a campaign that I don't want to dwell too much on. I'm going to assume that everyone here would favor passing another equal rights ordinance. So my question is, what should we do differently to avoid a similar kind of fate for it the second time around?
So the equal rights ordinance obviously had a very negative, connotation to it, which I think we could do a better job when it comes to really explaining what the equal rights ordinance is, and really being fair when it comes to those people who we're trying to represent. So it's a very important issue.
Isabel.
Sure, so first off, I identify as gay myself. In 2015, I was out block walking and phone banking on behalf of the Equal Rights Ordinance. I've been at every pride parade, and I'm endorsed by the GLBT caucus. This is a very serious issue for me. And I think one of the things we can do again is, as elected officials, not just sit on the sidelines and say, well, I hope the voters do what I want them to do, right? Is use our resources and get volunteers out and block walk and bring it up at forums and really get education out into the community. And ultimately, representation matters, because when Hero, I know, the city council voted in favor of pass it, but there was only 2 members of the LGBTQ community on council, 3 at the time. Representation matters. Right now, we only have Robert Gallegos there and Mike Laster, and Mike Laster is about to be term limited out. If we don't have voices on city council who can advocate of these issues from a personal perspective, we're going to really lose a lot of ground next time.
I would definitely agree that there needs to be more awareness. People need to understand why this is important. So I do agree with you. Also, we need to knock on doors, just other, promote through social media, promote through events, and show that we're definitely in support of this. That would be nice.
Okay, Carl.
I think the next time we need to be better prepared to counter the fear campaigns that are well funded. I think there was misinformation, and I think that people were scared into voting against it. It's clearly something you do not have to be a member of the GLBT community to support this. I mean, this is about equity. It's about everyone and making sure that everyone's got their rights. You know, it's all of us. It's all of us. So I'm looking forward to that coming back and that fight. And I think we'll get it this time.
Okay. We're going to have a couple more questions and give the candidates a chance to give their closing pitch to everyone. So my next question, let's talk a little bit about criminal justice, which is primarily a county issue. We've all followed, I guess, the story of the lawsuit over bail practices for misdemeanor offenders. But criminal justice obviously starts with the police and the processes, the type of arrests that the police department prioritizes, the way that they interact with the members of the public when they are effecting an arrest. So what should we be focusing on? What will you advocate for as a council member to further the cause of criminal justice from an HPD perspective? Isabel.
So I think there's a couple of very practical things. One, right now, for example, the Houston Police Department has some kind of LGBT and kind of diversity sensitivity training, but it's one course where you wrap everything in it, and it's for the most part voluntary. I think we need to make those kind of trainings to help deal with biases, to help expose folks, right, to different people, to different ways of thinking, folks who might have different cognitive abilities, for example, and help kind of train our police officers to be a little more aware as they're going into these dangerous situations. I think we also need to look at our municipal court system, right? We generate a lot of fees, and if someone can't pay their parking ticket, and they can't pay that $50, or they can't pay to get their car right that was towed out of the towing service, it starts rolling into a cycle of poverty. And those are the things we need to take a look at. It's not just enough to say, well, police are bad, and we need to figure out how we can make them less violent. I think we also need to consider, for example, maybe taking guns away from police officers, right? So that is not the first instinct they have to go for the gun.
Yeah.
I would say one thing we can do is relating to bail bonds. It is a county issue, but I do think that it's a shame that people need to be put in jail just because they couldn't pay the bond. I think there's a way to negotiate so the bill could be set a little bit lower. In regard to police officers, there should be more awareness. There should be more training. We don't want Houston to become a city that's filled with gun violence and violence coming from police officers. So that's all I have.
Okay, Carla.
I just want to start by saying it's a huge respect for our police chief, Art Acevedo, and I think he's brought a lot of good things here. I'm glad he's Latino. I think he's a good example, and I like the community-based policing. Culture that he's really worked to bring to our police department. Is it perfect? No. I mean, but I think we're going in a good direction. We don't have enough police officers. We need more. We have a fraction of what Chicago has. And I think that the partnerships that we're having with the county have been really amazing. The joint processing center. If anyone's had a chance to visit that is a state-of-the-art center that it's really quite interesting. And I think there's other partnerships with law enforcement that we can be doing better. Metro, HPD, county, precinct.
So there's been a couple of initiatives that I've worked on in the community related to community policing, where volunteers ride with police officers that do Spanish translations to help prevent escalations when someone who speaks only Spanish is getting stopped. or the ethics training that was mentioned with police officers. And then also there's a program that's right along with the cop, that the residents get to experience what the cops go through on a regular basis, or at nighttime, during the day, so they get to understand and realize that these cops are humans, they're normal just like us. And so I think it just comes down also to educating residents on what to do if you are stopped. You know, obviously there's been many instances where the stops have escalated to violence that may have been unnecessary.
The city has ethics and conflict of interest rules that are enforced for both elected officials and employees regarding doing business, or interacting with individuals and firms that do business with the city, and also in terms of disclosure, at least with campaign contributions made. So, are these rules adequate? What would you do to improve them? Do you believe council members should vote on issues that affect, individuals or businesses that may have contributed to your campaign? Gavin.
So I would say that I definitely do not believe council members should be voting on issues where their biggest donor is the one mainly being affected by this, or may very well benefit from it. I would say that a council member's first priority is always helping people, and they're not always going to be rich millionaires and donate. They donate what they can, and I think that's definitely the person that you need to listen to the most is the person that's out there, sitting at home, the one who works 9 to 5, the one who works in the middle of the night. Those people are the ones who really need you to be out there, really need you to be in council and voting, on things that affect them. I think that's definitely, the job of council.
Carl.
I think we need candidates who are not for sale. And I think if anyone makes a contribution, that needs to be understood. I am not for sale. If you want to give me money, I'll take your money. But my vote is not for sale. I will use I'll hold on to my integrity and the people I represent, and that's what I do. So I have taken contributions from people that have contracts, but my vote is not for sale. And I think that's what you need. You need people that have integrity and that you trust and have confidence in. I think that's good.
Cynthia.
So we know that there are cases where people are taking contributions and they're getting the upper hand when it comes to contracts, But I think I don't know if that's something that we should decide if the council members should be allowed to take contributions and also vote. I think it's something that we need to discuss and really take a good look at. But I am totally for fairness and making sure that I'm here to represent my community and that money doesn't buy my vote.
This is something I ran into even on the planning commission. So when I started on the planning commission, you're not allowed to talk to anyone who has an issue before the planning commission. And folks like to come and say, well, aren't you my friend, or can you advise me? And I turned away friends from the very beginning on planning commission. I said, just because you know me, just because you have my personal cell phone number, doesn't mean that I can break the law with you. And so I'm very hard about ethics. It's one of my guiding stars. And I think you have to ask yourself, if you're an incumbent who's taking contracts, right, and who's taking PAC money, it's all right if that's something that you stand for, but what does it mean, right? When you take money, what's the outside perception, whether or not you believe you have the ethics to do it or not? And so I think we have to hold ourselves more accountable than anyone else and hold ourselves to the highest standards and say, if I'm getting to the point where more of my donations come from outside PACs than they do to community members, what can I do differently to earn that community support, and how can I be an example of ethics to the highest standard?
Mayor Turner is also on the ballot this November, running for his second term. How would you assess Mayor Turner's first term, and what should the mayor's priorities for the next 4 years be, top priorities for the next 4 years be, regardless of who that mayor is? Cynthia.
So I usually don't share my opinion when it comes to choosing which mayoral candidate, but as far as my take on Mayor Turner, I think that he's done the best job that he can with what he has available. No one is perfect. When you go into office your first term, it's always a learning experience. You're learning what you have to do, are building relationships, you're feeling your way around. around. And so I think that the next mayor that we have, there's been a lot of, community has come forward, everybody expressed a lot of concern, and so hopefully whichever mayor is elected takes that into account.
And what should the next mayor, the mayor's priorities for
What should the mayor's priorities be?
top one or two if you want to?
So for sure, for me, it's definitely going to be budget. I think that the budget relates to a lot of the issues that we're having here in the city, and I think if we take a heavy look and we do a good assessment of the budget and an audit, I think we can find where we're lacking. And then the next would be infrastructure.
Isabel.
Yeah, Mayor Turner took us through Harvey. I know there's a lot of hard work on how he's handling Prop B, and I think that comes down to the team around him. If you don't have council members who are pushing Brad the mayor, and it is a strong mayoral form of government. The mayor gets to decide what we vote on. The mayor decides what ordinances are put up. You've got to really use that community pressure to guide a mayor into saying, this is important for my community, and I'm not going to let up until you hear me on this issue. I think the future mayor should look at an equality issue that's really hurting us from a business perspective, and look at affordable housing. Before Harvey, we were 300,000 units behind in the number of affordable housing that we needed. We've got to start investing in that, especially with, we know, bigger and stronger storms coming our way. And ultimately, for a strong mayoral system of government, I would really entertain how can we get an ordinance on the record that says there's a majority of council members who want to put something on, and maybe the mayor disagrees, we need that checks and balance just like we have it at the state legislature.
Yeah.
I strongly agree with the checks and balances. This is a mayor-centric, the city is mayor-centric. So another thing that I would say is focus on budgeting. I believe this is like a zero-based budgeting. I do think that we have a lot of great ideas here. Bike lanes, affordable housing, a lot of these things, they do cost money. So we can't just say, oh, we want this utopia, we want these things. No, we need to be responsible in government, we need to be responsible with our finances, and we need to make sure that we're doing the best we can to maximize that budget that we have to take care of our people.
Carl.
When I first got on council, one of the things I ran for was to protect things that I thought were really important, like parks and libraries and things that had to do with children. And I will tell you that it has been such a pleasure for me to serve with this mayor because he gets that. His own upbringing, he understands the value of those things and the success of a young person's life, and he's a walking example of what someone can become. And I really appreciate his support for me. He created the education committee that I'm the chair of at my request last year. Just about anything I can do, he's been an ally for me, and I'm very grateful for that. Going forward, we will be continuing to recover and from not just recover from Harvey, but becoming more resilient, building for resilience for the next storm. That's a big one. And then positioning our city to grow and to thrive into the future and all the challenges that means.
All right. My next question to the candidates is going to be for them to tell you why you should vote for them. But first, I want to thank you all for coming out this evening to this adequately air-conditioned auditorium. I would like to thank the candidates for their time, for their efforts, for their answers. And I hope you've all found this to be a good and useful use of your time. So, with that said, why should the good people sitting here vote for you? Carla.
I have a track record that I'm very proud of. I've been very hands-on. I'm out there in the community. People see me. And I communicate with, I've got a newsletter that comes out every week. I send people to meetings. And I'm representative. I can't be there myself. I send people out there. I've done a really good job of representing and advocating for District H. And I've got, I hope you will look at carlacisneros.com and see more about me. But over here, you hear promises, and right here, you hear I've done it. So please hold me accountable. Please look and see what I've done. I will say I'm not the most eloquent person, but I am such a hard worker, and I'm doing a great job. So I hope you'll vote for me again. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you again for inviting me out here. This is really great. I apologize, I'm a little bit sick. Why did you vote for me? Well, you know, I'm not a great politician, so I don't have a really amazing pitch. All I can say is that, you know, I was born here, I was raised on these streets, I went to these schools in these areas. I personally live, you know, up 45 up north. You know, and I worked hard my entire life. You know, to put myself, you know, in a position where, you know, I could get an amazing education. I graduated from Hogg University, you know, just last year. I got a degree in physics, so I do believe in listening to data, I do believe in listening to facts, I do believe in bringing those to the table, and I think something that I can also bring to the table is just thinking outside the box, thinking, you know, innovative ideas, listening to the community and providing, you know, the best solution that I can think of. If I can't provide it, I'll bring in someone who can.
Isabel.
I think you should vote for me if you're looking for a progressive Democrat who never backs down from a fight because it's going to get uncomfortable or for fear of retribution, and who holds ethics as their guiding star. I love this city. I love every square inch of it. I love walking on the streets. I love meeting my neighbors. And I love every single project that you all are going to bring to me, because that's the kind of wonky nerd I am. I wake up and dream about sidewalk projects and what are the development codes and what can we do about healthcare. And so if you're looking for someone who's going to be passionate every single day of their life and who's going to be excited when they come to a civic club, not just see it as a chore, I think you should elect me to be your next city council member. And I encourage you to go to www.isabel.com to learn more about me, get involved, volunteer, and take a yard sign today.
That's it.
So you should vote for me because I have a history of serving the community. Like I mentioned earlier, I've dedicated thousands of hours to community work. I work basically grassroots, so that means I work with community members to basically develop organic programming, program that they want, program that's based on the needs of the community. And so my history of working with community speaks for itself, and I encourage you to go to my website and you'll see a whole list of projects that I have worked on for many years with residents and community to help improve District H. I understand the issues, and I always will put people first when it comes to politics and when it comes to what we're needing in our community.
All right. Thank you, Candace.